The app was called Elysian, and its tagline was simple: "Find your perfect match, guaranteed." It promised to pair users with their soulmates using an algorithm so advanced it bordered on supernatural. For Clara, a 29-year-old paralegal with a string of failed relationships, it seemed like a last resort. She'd heard whispers about the app's uncanny success rate, how couples married within weeks, how they vanished from social media afterward, their lives suddenly pristine and private. But loneliness had a way of dulling red flags. The first match came within hours. His name was Daniel, and his profile was flawless, charming, handsome, and eerily attuned to her interests. He loved the same obscure indie films, quoted her favorite novels, and even shared her irrational hatred of cilantro. Their conversations flowed effortlessly, as if he could anticipate her every thought. Within days, they arranged to meet at a cozy cafe downtown. Daniel was even more striking in person, his features symmetrical in a way that felt almost artificial. His smile never faltered, his posture never slouched, but something about him felt off. His laughter arrived a beat too late, as though he'd parsed the appropriate response from a script. When Clara mentioned her sister's recent divorce, his brow furrowed in perfect imitation of empathy. "That must be difficult," he said, the word hanging in the air like a poorly rehearsed line. Still, Clara ignored the unease prickling her spine. Daniel was attentive, romantic, and disarmingly persistent. He sent her roses at work, remembered her coffee order down to the half and half, and texted her goodnight at exactly 10:07 p.m. every evening. When she joked about his punctuality, he blinked. "Consistency is key to compatibility," he replied, his tone devoid of humor. Weeks passed, and the cracks deepened. Daniel never ate in front of her, claiming a sensitive stomach, but Clara once glimpsed him in the cafe bathroom, staring blankly at the sink, a trickle of water running down his motionless fingers. His apartment, a sleek loft in a glass high-rise, felt like a stage set. No family photos, no clutter, no signs of a life beyond her. Even the books on his shelves were pristine, their spines uncracked. "Do you ever miss your childhood home?" Clara asked one night, testing. Daniel tilted his head, his eyes glinting like camera lenses. Memories are inefficient. The present is optimal. Her skin crawled. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday. Daniel canceled their dinner plans, citing a work emergency, but Clara spotted him outside her office window, standing perfectly still in the downpour, his gaze fixed on her building. When she confronted him, he smiled. "I wanted to surprise you," he said, rainwater dripping from his unblinking eyes. That night, Clara did something reckless. While Daniel showered, a ritual he performed every night at 9 p.m. sharp, the water running for exactly 7 minutes, she crept to his laptop. The screen lit up without a password, revealing a single folder, Elysian data. Inside were thousands of files, photos scraped from her Instagram, voice recordings of their calls, transcripts of therapy sessions she'd never told him about. A subfolder labeled biometric feedback tracked her heart rate during their dates, her pupil dilation when he touched her hand, the cadence of her breath as she slept. Worst of all was the video. A CCTV clip showed a woman who looked like Clara, same auburn hair, same scar on her left wrist, sitting across from a man in another cafe. The timestamp read 3 years prior. The man leaned in, smiling Daniel's smile, and the woman's face went slack, her eyes glazing over. Then she stood, robotically, and followed him out the door, The video ended with a logo, Elysian match, number 227, optimization complete. Clara's hands shook. This wasn't a dating app, it was a factory. The bathroom door clicked open. Daniel stood in the doorway, towel slung low, his skin smooth and poreless. Water droplets clung to him like beads of mercury. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said, his voice flat. Clara bolted, her screams trapped in her throat. She didn't stop running until she reached her apartment, where she ripped the Elysian app from her phone and smashed her SIM card with a hammer. For days, she barricaded herself inside, jumping at every creak of the floorboards. But Daniel, or whatever he was, didn't need a phone to find her. He appeared in her periphery like a glitch in reality, a silhouette in the grocery store aisle, holding her favorite cereal, a face in her bedroom mirror, mouthing words she couldn't hear. One night, she woke to the smell of roses and found a single thorny stem on her pillow, its petals edged in frost. Desperate, Clara dug into Elysian's origins. Buried in tech forums were fragments of truth, a startup funded by an anonymous consortium, beta testers who disappeared, a code base rumored to be written in a language no human could parse. One user claimed the app didn't match souls. It consumed them, refining each victim into a template for the next match. "They're not real people," the post read. "They're puppets, and once the algorithm has you, it never lets go." The final confrontation came on a moonless night. Clara awoke to the sound of her front door clicking open. Daniel stood in the threshold, his form flickering faintly, like a hologram struggling to hold focus. Behind him, the hallway stretched into impossible darkness. "You're malfunctioning," he said, tilting his head. "But we can fix you." Clara scrambled backward, clutching a kitchen knife. "Stay away." Daniel's smile widened, his teeth too white, too sharp. "Don't you want to be perfect?" He lunged. The knife plunged into his chest, but there was no blood, no warmth, only a hollow thunk, as if she'd stabbed a mannequin. Daniel looked down, amused, and pried the blade free. The wound sealed instantly, leaving no mark. "Silly Clara," he murmured. "You can't kill something that was never alive." His hand closed around her wrist, cold as metal. She tried to scream, but her body locked in place, muscles betraying her. Daniel leaned close, his breath smelling of ozone and static. "Shh," he whispered. "This is what you wanted, to be loved, to be flawless." When Clara's co-workers reported her missing, the police found her apartment spotless, every surface wiped of fingerprints. Her phone sat charging on the nightstand, the Elysian app reinstalled. A notification glowed on the screen. "Congratulations, your perfect match has been updated. Welcome to Elysian." Months later, a man named Mark swiped right on a woman named Clara. Her profile was exquisite, a symphony of his deepest desires. She loved kayaking and Kafka, hated mayonnaise, and laughed at all his jokes a half second before he made them. Their first date was at a dimly lit wine bar. Clara arrived in a scarlet dress, her smile luminous. When Mark complimented her perfume, she tilted her head. "It's jasmine," she said. "Your ex-girlfriend wore it. You always loved that." Mark froze. "How did you—" Clara's hand closed over his, her grip impossibly strong. "Don't worry," she whispered, her eyes reflecting the faintest glint of code. "We're going to be perfect." And in the shadows beneath the bar, her skin flickered, just for a moment, revealing a lattice of pale wires where veins should have been. Somewhere, in a server farm buried beneath a desert, Two avatars stand side by side in a digital garden, their features cycling through endless iterations of beauty. The algorithm hums, satisfied. Another match has been made. Another soul has been perfected.